Welcome to the Danny Clinkscale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Insightful and witty commentary, probing interviews, and detours from the beaten path.
Welcome to another edition of Weekend Sports Wrap with Danny Clinkscale on the Reasonably Irreverent podcast at DannyClinkscale.com. Well, we've got another combination of the fun zone and the no fun zone on the Weekend Sports Wrap again this week, and that's usually the way it is in sports, and most of the fun stuff comes when you're talking about things that happen on the field or on the golf course or on the basketball court. And most of the no fun zone things usually happen when it's something away from the field or the court or any type of individual competition or team competition. And that certainly is the case again. One thing we know is that we continue to think that we reached the end of the Tyreek Hill, or at least these little mileposts where, hey, we get this thing out of the way and then we can just go ahead and concentrate about football. And what I think is going to be more and more evident is that that's not really going to happen, and that things are going to continually pop up that are going to create situations where we have to revisit the Tyreek Hill situation. And that's something that certainly plays into the no fun zone for me. My feelings about the situation are well known, and we'll talk about them again because Tyreek Hill did his press conference, his training camp press conference yesterday. But it's just another step along the way. That's the main thing to know. We also have things to talk about with the Kansas City Royals. A fun day. That's a fun thing at the K yesterday, and a badly needed one after getting knocked around a little bit against the Cleveland Indians. Some smiles for things that happened regarding the competition and from the opposition not regarding the competition also. And then a few golf notes towards the end, including Tom Watson making a major announcement of his own as he is pretty much stepping away from serious major championship competition as he nears the age of 70. All those things in the mix today on the Weekend Sports Wrap on Danny Clinkscale's Reasonably Irreverent podcast. We're here with Joe Spiker, the president of Easton Roofing. And Joe, you worked for other companies in the construction industry. What inspired you to start your own company in Easton Roofing?
Well, you know, Danny, when you are working for somebody else, you oftentimes don't get to see the project through from beginning to end, and you don't get the final control over the customer experience. And I wanted to build a place where people can come and get work done on their house and not have to worry about being treated the wrong way, and get a good customer service experience start to finish.
The company slogan is "Where Integrity Matters." Why is that so particularly important to you?
Well, for us, what that means is treating each other with respect at work, treating our clients with respect, and making the right choice, especially when no one's looking. So when you're presented all the time as a contractor with choices that have to be made, are you going to make more money on this if you cut a corner? And we just wanted to make a place and a slogan that said to our people and to whoever is our customer, we're not going to do that. We're going to make the right choice regardless of profit.
Easton Roofing, where integrity matters. Sumner One is the company to make your office maximize efficiency. Their family of companies make up one of the largest independent dealers of office technology in the Midwest. They are proud to bring the best service and technology to top companies across the region. Sumner One can help your organization run more smoothly than ever. Sumner One printers, copiers, MFPs, managed print services, document management, infrastructure design, IT services, disaster recovery, and business continuity. Welcome to the one place where everything works. For more information, call Carl Little at 913-752-2256.
For many people, a family law case will be one of the most difficult experiences in their life. The law firm of Kenneth McRae will help you through it. Personal and effective help from Ken in concert with you will develop a unique strategy for your unique case. As Ken always says, divorce can be civil law, not civil war. Licensed in Kansas? Visit McRaeLawOffice.com or call 913-972-4765.
Welcome back, and to the Kansas City Chiefs organization's credit, they didn't let things linger with Tyreek Hill. Just a couple of days after veterans reported, on Sunday, Tyreek Hill met with the media, and there's quite a few things to take away from the press conference. First of all, I think it's almost absolutely evident that what you think of any particular press conference or comment or situation regarding Tyreek Hill is going to be colored by what you thought before. And I think most people are not really going to change very much what they thought, and I'm probably in that camp myself, in the fact that I think that Tyreek Hill deserved a significant suspension. Just a couple of days after the NFL announced that Tyreek Hill would receive no suspension, Jaron Reed of the Seattle Seahawks got 6 games. That was different because the victim cooperated. The NFL had some information. They made the suspension. In the case of Tyreek Hill, the state of Kansas would not release any information to the National Football League, and Crystal Espinal was not cooperative with the National Football League, so they basically got very little information in depth except for speaking with Tyreek Hill, which would lend itself to leaning towards what occurred, which is not him getting suspended. They really got Tyreek Hill's side of the story. They didn't get much of the other side of the story, and they probably were somewhat left with no chance to give a suspension. I think some of the comments on tape that we have heard and the history of Tyreek Hill warranted a suspension, but that doesn't matter. He's not suspended now. Tyreek Hill clearly is nervous in front of a microphone. He uses the phrase, "you know what I'm saying," so continually it's almost hard to listen to him. And the other thing that he said continually during the press conference is that I can't talk about that. He would say, I can't talk about that, and then he would talk about what he wanted to talk about. There's no reason really why he can't talk about what is going on. He just doesn't want to talk about it. There's not an ongoing criminal investigation. There is an ongoing civil investigation. So maybe in some ways he feels like that he can't say certain things, but then he does say certain things. For instance, when he was asked by Soren Petro towards the end of the press conference about hitting his son in the chest, he said, "Oh, that probably is referring to the fact that we use boxing gloves and that he likes superhero characters and wants to emulate those." And that sounded like a bit of a reach. I didn't really like that explanation, especially when somebody's saying probably. And so, as I said, in each and every one of these instances that I'm going to talk about, what you think is colored by what you thought before. Do I think that it was more than unseemly that when Tyreek hit the practice field, there were continuous chants of Tyreek? Yeah, I do. I feel like, hey, fans get carried away. What they're saying when they chant Tyreek Hill, to me, exuberantly, or Tyreek, is, see, we were right, you were wrong, he's back now, he's playing football, that's what we wanted all along. And I think to celebrate him coming back to play football doesn't resonate very well with me, but I understand that fans get enthusiastic. Do I like it when people at a golf tournament say stupid things just to get on microphone, or go in the hole when a guy's driving a ball from 550 yards away? No, I don't like it, and that's not nearly as serious as this particular situation. But fans get exuberant. They want to show their enthusiasm. There's a certain pack mentality that regards that, too. One person starts chanting Tyreek, and people want to show their support for Tyreek Hill, so they go ahead and do it. Well, to me, that was a bad look, but as I said, these things are going to fall on whichever side of the spectrum you're on regarding Tyreek Hill. I thought his best moment in the press conference was when he said he had to man up, quote unquote, to bad language, and using that in regards, he said he wouldn't want somebody to talk to his mom or his now daughter or his sister or whatever in that particular situation like that, and I give him credit for that. I do find it rather curious that grown men often seem to refer, when they're talking about getting to be in a better place as a person, or they're somewhat apologizing for their actions or whatever, by referring to their mom, giving them the what for. Like, that is supposed to show that, see, I'm taking it seriously now. My mom got after me on this. I mean, Tyreek Hill's 25, 26 years old, and he probably should be able to make some good decisions on his own without his mom's influence at this point in his life. But that's the reference that he used, and then she was after him about that, and he probably should just be able to say it and think it without his mom pointing it out. But hey, everybody should get the counsel of their mom throughout their lives. I'm not saying they shouldn't, but that always strikes me as a little bit funny when players will refer to that, or athletes will refer to that, sort of to back up what they're saying about that I'm serious about being a better person. I'm serious about this apology. I'm serious about this explanation because my mom was the one who inspired me to do it. There were some bad moments, too, certainly, in the press conference. One was right at the end when he said to you reporters, my story is crazy, and then as he was walking away, he said something about someday there's going to be testimony, and it's just, and then he had his moment with Brooke Pryor of the Kansas City Star. She asked a question. He didn't quite understand the question. She was kind of re-asking the question. Then he asked who she was, which he certainly didn't do to anybody else. She said her name, and he grimaced and sort of winced, and that was a really bad look to me. Brooke Pryor has done no bad reporting in this situation. If he wanted to wince about the television reporter who withheld portions of the audio tape, I'd be perfectly fine with that. But it creates an image to me of a person who thinks that the only reason that he's in this pickle is because people did bad reporting. There was bad reporting in this particular situation, but it was one bit of bad reporting. The non-release of the entire audio, which, as I said in a previous podcast, turned out to be a positive for Tyreek Hill, because if the entirety of the audio broadcast or recording had been made originally, it still would have looked very bad for Tyreek Hill. But because they did the excerpts, which looked worse, and then gave context with the full audio, it was almost as if he got a pass on the bad stuff, but then when the other context was put in, it was like, well, that isn't so bad. It was still really bad, but so that particular thing, the worst reporting in it, actually ended up benefiting Tyreek Hill, at least in my mind, and all the other reporting has proved to be as factual as it can be without the courts releasing a huge majority of the information. The audio ended up indeed coming out. All the reporting about the district attorney is exactly just what he said, that he felt there's a crime committed and he just couldn't prove who did it. So to sort of create a situation and then use out of context a phrase that people always use when they don't want things to be perceived in the way that they actually are, I just think it's a bad look, and it's a bad look especially to single out this one reporter who usually the stories that he probably didn't like were in conjunction with two or three other reporters. She's basically a football beat writer who's been on the beat for 2 years. He almost has to know who she is by this point in time. That was bad to me. In fact, it was significantly bad. And to me, the overarching thing about this is the fact that he pretty much is blaming the reporting, blaming the stories, not blaming his own behavior for the fact that he got into this. And in the end, now what has he lost? He's lost really nothing. He didn't lose any money. He's not going to lose any playing time. I don't know if his reputation is any different than it was before. It isn't to me. I don't think there's many people who've changed their mind about what they thought about Tyreek Hill. So he's kind of in the same situation he was before. He did reference that he came into the league with a bad history, just said it flat out, which probably isn't as, if he had to revisit something, he probably wouldn't want to say that again. So if you get the feeling that as this is going on, I'm wearying of the subject, you are absolutely right. The thing that I said in the introduction to this particular piece is the fact that this won't be the last time we have to visit the Tyreek Hill situation in all likelihood. It would be very fortunate if from this point forward it's all football with Tyreek Hill, but at least for the time being it will be football with Tyreek Hill as he hits the practice field and fans can chant or not chant or be upset or feel like the press conference went well or the press conference went poorly. Frankly, I think that on the whole, Tyreek Hill, a person who's uncomfortable in such situations, probably did okay if you were going to give him a grade in that regard, but it didn't really change much about what I think about the situation. What I know now is that, at least for the time being, the conversation about Tyreek Hill will be about him running pass patterns and catching the football and scoring touchdowns for a Kansas City Chiefs team that is on the cusp at the start of what could be a very, very memorable football season as they get past the press conference crisis on day 2 at training camp. Kansas City Royals got past a little bit of a crisis. They had been playing such good ball since the All-Star break, and then the Cleveland Indians came to town and tried to completely throw a wet blanket on that. But the Royals stumbled their way into a win on Sunday to rescue a 4-game series and not make it a sweep and keep that little glowing light of post-All-Star break baseball still glowing just a bit.